researchers Igor Nikitin and Victoria Nikitin-Shin are trying to find answers to historical questions that had a significant influence on the modern world. This story is connected with the ambitions of great conquerors, with great achievements, and with the spread of the Holy Scriptures. The lives of the participants of those events were surrounded by many legends. We're trying to find the answer to one of the most intricate mysteries of history, to reveal the secret of Cleopatra and learn how this notorious mistress of Egypt influenced our life today.
Cleopatra. Years of life 69 to 30 BC. Full name Cleopatra. During her life, she became the heroine of numerous legends.
Cleopatra impressed her contemporaries. Her enemies told unbelievable stories about her. Many experts are forced to retell the legends started by her enemies. We draw our information about Cleopatra from the films, which are filled with false fables.
Who was this woman who was able to charm the most influential men of her time? And what did she use her power over men for?
To find the answer to this question, researchers did not travel to a huge metropolis, but to the small village of Bergama, on the territory of modern Turkey, with a population of about 50,000 people. Many Bergama residents are farmers. They need lime to cultivate their land. To get this material, peasants burn many tons of marble, and they often find ancient sculptures and columns among the debris. Where did those colossal marble statues come from? The territory of the village of Bergama used to be one of the most powerful and richest centers in the world, Pergamum. The city was founded by the Greeks in the 12th century BC. A new impetus for the development was in the 3rd century after the conquest of Alexander the Great. Thanks to the efficient management of his heirs, it was considered the 3rd largest city of the ancient world, after Rome and Alexandria. There were built palaces and temples. Medicine and writing flourished. One of the proofs of Pergamum's wealth was in Constantinople, at the Church of Saint Sophia. These pitchers found in Pergamum were filled with gold. Just imagine the riches of the city, if 3 man-sized marble pitchers were filled with gold and treasures. It is among these ruins of Pergamum, in the Turkish village of Bergamo, Igor and Victoria Nikitin are trying to find the answer to the question, who was Queen Cleopatra? Surprisingly, the answer does not lie in the remnants of the majestic temples. It is in the name of the city itself, which is close to the well-known word pergament, or parchment. In this place, there was a famous Pergamum library. It was created in the 2nd century BC, and there were 20,000 folios with the work of Greek scholars and manuscripts on medicine. After the conquest of Alexander the Great, in new Greek cities, libraries were not just storage archives, but research centers and places of nourishing state elites. Rulers of different cities competed with one another not only in power, but also in education. Our researchers continued to search for the answer to the question, who was Cleopatra? The search led them to the city of Pergamum, which is where the Egyptian queen centered her aspiration and ambition. Pergamum acquired worldwide fame and popularity thanks to its unique library. How is the Pergamum library related to the life of the most famous woman in antiquity? The answer to this question lies in the origin of the queen. How was the ruler of Egypt, Cleopatra, not Egyptian? How, then, was she able to sit on the throne of mighty Egypt? Cleopatra did not have a drop of Egyptian blood, but it was her true origin that determined the way of her life as the mistress of Egypt. Even her name reflects part of her mission in life. In Greek, Cleopatris means glory of the father. Yes, you heard that right. Greek. She was Greek and came from the noble family of the Ptolemies. Ptolemy was a comrade in arms of one of the most famous people in history, Alexander the Great. Alexander of Macedonia, better known as Alexander the Great. Years of life from 356 to 323 BC. A brilliant commander, he ascended the throne at the age of 20, established a number of large cities, created one of the largest states in the history of mankind. It stretched from Asia Minor to the borders of India, and from the Black Sea to the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula. The life of this great conqueror is full of legends. It is not surprising, because he felt himself to be a god, the son of Zeus. Alexander was not only a great warrior, but also a patron of knowledge. His teacher was the famous philosopher Aristotle. Even during his campaigns, Alexander did not part with the volume of Elise, given to him by Aristotle. At the age of 30, Alexander succeeded in conquering nearly the entire known world at the time. This brilliant commander died shortly after concluding his great conquests. Disciple of Aristotle, Alexander of Macedonia, looked at his life as a divine mission. He decided to enrich the people with knowledge and philosophy, connect them with the help of roads, and give the people an opportunity to communicate and trade freely. It meant creating a unified world, a world that no one could ever have imagined before him. Unification of one world and the establishment of an empire with one language, one legal system, safe roads, and strong trade led to the rapid flourishing and spreading of the Greek culture. Alexander the Great had founded many cities. 37 of them received the same title, Alexandria. The most famous and largest of them was in Egypt. For many years, Alexandria was not only the capital of Egypt, but the intellectual and cultural center of the ancient world. Just 300 years after the conquest of Egypt, the Egyptian language was almost forgotten. All the people spoke only Greek. The city was famous for its library. The rulers of the country were trying to collect valuable manuscripts from all around the world.
In the famous library of Alexandria, young Cleopatra spent her childhood. When she read about the great campaigns of Alexander the Great, a dream was born in her heart. That dream later became the purpose of her life. The future queen of Egypt, at a young age, already realized her calling, the restoration of the lost empire of Alexander the Great.
Alexander is seen as the great conqueror, but his empire did not last long. What did Alexander achieve? It is because of the Alexander Hellenic culture rapidly spreading around the world. He introduced the common currency to different cities that stimulated the development of the integrated economy of the Mediterranean region. There were new trade routes. He created a new world, the Hellenic world. Moreover, he laid the foundations of all the modern culture. We can say that the Roman Empire would have been impossible if by that time there were no empire of Alexander. Alexander marked the end of the history of individual countries and regions. After him, their history was interconnected.
После него их история оказалась взаимосвязанной.
Cleopatra, who was born 3 centuries after Alexander, felt that connection like no one else. Cleopatra is often presented as a subtly seductive, beautiful woman, an insatiable promiscuity which struck all the men around her. But if you look closely at her image preserved on coins and sculptures, you can see that she was not beautiful. She had a large Ptolemaic nose and an abnormal face features.
The comparison of Cleopatra with the Hollywood beauty is wrong. Her beauty did not meet the generally accepted canons. Stories about the seductive and debauched woman appeared only during the time of the Emperor Octavian, when enemies were trying to defame the ambitious queen.
Greek philosopher Plutarch said of her, "For the beauty of that woman was not in the beauty that was called incomparable and striking at first sight, but her conversation had irresistible charm, and because of that, her image, combined with her particularly convincing way of speaking, with great charm, through every word, in every moment, becomes etched in memory." We are trying to understand what was the true secret of Cleopatra's attractiveness. Without a doubt, she had an amazing charisma. After all, 2 of the most powerful men of the world at that time, Gaius Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, tied their lives with the Queen of Egypt. Maybe their relationship was more than just physical attraction. Gaius Julius Caesar, years of life from 100 to 44 year BC. Statesman and politician, dictator, warrior, writer. He radically changed the culture and political identity of Western Europe, leaving an incredible mark on the lives of future generations of Europeans. Many monarchs wanted to associate themselves with the legendary Caesar. The Russian concept of king, or tsar, derived from the word Caesar.
There were many legends throughout history about how the experienced seductress Cleopatra enchanted Gaius Julius Caesar. However, when Caesar met Cleopatra, he was 40 years old, and she had just turned 17.
The influence of Cleopatra upon Caesar was so great that he even forgot about his empire. It is possible that meeting Cleopatra had cost him his life. How was he conquered? Oddly enough, the answer to this question could lie in Cleopatra's ambition regarding the Pergamum library. Well-educated, speaking 8 different languages, Cleopatra saw herself as heir to Alexander the Great. The queen decided to fulfill Alexander's dreams in establishing a unified empire. Being a Greek with the power and capabilities of Egypt, she sought to inspire the greatest men of that time by her mission.
The dream of Gaius Julius Caesar was to create a united world under Roman rule. Ambitions of Caesar and Cleopatra were identical. Attraction between them developed out of common interests. Their love was the expression and embodiment of their joint dream of the united world, and the continuation of the dream of Alexander the Great.
Oddly enough, a relatively small but powerful kingdom of Pergamum stood in the way of her ambition. During the reign of the Ptolemies in Egypt, the Library of Alexandria had reached its peak. But at the time of the reign of Cleopatra, the greatest archive came to desolation. Cleopatra decided to restore the former glory of the library. Her pride was hurt by the fact that manuscripts of Aristotle, the teacher of Alexander of Macedonia, the manuscripts of Aristotle, the teacher of Alexander the Great, were not in Alexandria, but in the Library of Pergamum. Pergamum, there were more than 200,000 scrolls. It is impossible to overemphasize their influence on the development of the culture of that time. The king of Pergamum would pay for the scrolls their weight in gold. the number of folios, the library of Pergamum can be compared only to Alexandria. Although papyrus, a cheap fabric for book production, had been invented in Egypt, books were in the form of scrolls, and they were wound onto a wooden stick. If you expand the scroll, its length could reach 5 to 6 meters. Fearing competition, the ruler of Alexander Ptolemy V prohibited the export of papyrus from Egypt in the 3rd century BC. As a result of this prohibition, the competition of the Library of Pergamum was at risk. This event did not ruin the Library of Pergamum, but also gave it a new impetus to development. The king of Pergamum, Amenes II, ordered to invent an alternative material for making books. The new material, parchment, was named after the city where it was invented. Parchment was made from pieces of the finest leather. Processing was largely limited to washing, cleaning, drying skin, and stretching it on a special frame. Of course, this material was much more expensive than the cheap papyrus, but parchment was stronger and more durable.
In the future, before the invention of paper, parchment became the material most used in the world for writing. Thanks to this invention, Pergamum Library competed with the Library of Alexandria for about 100 years.
The first parchment, as well as papyrus, was stored in the form of scrolls. But then it was put in separate notebooks, 4, with a rectangular shape known as a code. Later, these notebooks were stapled in a book, in the form that we know them today.
Это появление книг произвело
promoted the informational revolution. Books replaced scrolls. Their difference was that the scroll was written on one side, and the page of the book was written on both sides. It doubled the density of the information carrier. It was much easier to find the right place in the text. Try 5-meter tape to rewind or turn over 100 pages. Which is faster? We can compare this breakthrough with the appearance of computer text search. The benefits of using the book was obvious. Many surviving texts of the New Testament are the remains of codes or books. Thanks to the parchment manuscripts, the Gospel and the Epistles of the Apostles were preserved. Surprisingly, Athens managed to live without books or almost with no books. In small Greek cities, people had no need for them. Ignorant people would ask, and knowledgeable people would answer. Those who wished to know the teachings of philosophers, they went directly to them and listened. After Alexander's world expanded, people moved from their homes. There was no one left to ask, how do I live my life? There were only clever books. People rushed to read, buy, and collect books. Books became an expensive commodity. Emperors evaluated prestige of the state by the size of their libraries. An impressive sweep of the empire, where people were united by a common language and general knowledge, became the impetus for establishing libraries. That is why the mission of Alexander the Great was directly related to the emergence of libraries, intellectual centers of Hellenism. Cleopatra's passion was the all-consuming desire to restore the empire of Alexander the Great. To achieve her mission, she was prepared for anything, even to ally with Gaius Julius Caesar himself. After the death of the great Caesar, his successor, Mark Antony, was also deeply captivated by the charm and persuasive speech of Cleopatra. Mark Antony, years of life from 83 to 30 BC. Roman politician, Caesarian, warlord, thrice consul.
When the Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra, married the most powerful man of the world, the Roman general Mark Antony, she asked for a wedding gift: Pergamum Library.
After receiving this gift, Cleopatra put an end to the ancient contest between two of the greatest treasuries of knowledge. Ironically, the destruction of the Library of Pergamum pre-anticipated the death of the mistress of Egypt. Like Alexander the Great, who died as soon as he completed his conquering quest, Cleopatra died after entering onto possession of thousands of ancient tomes. Fragile Cleopatra was a woman of unbending will. At first glance, it may seem that her mission was not fulfilled, but combining the achievements of Alexander the Great and the Roman Empire played its historic role. Cultural unity became a bleeding ground for the rapid spreading of the new religion, Christianity. Researchers Igor Nikitin and Victoria Nikitin-Shin are looking for the answer to the question: how did the actions of Alexander the Great and Cleopatra contribute to the development of the Christian faith? The empire covered almost all of the known world. The consequence of this was that a Roman citizen was aware of himself as a citizen of the world. And Christianity appealed to the person regardless of its national and tribal skills. Rome cared about the convenience and ease of communication between the individual parts. The empire was covered with a network of model roads. Shipping trade and passenger shipping covered all the Mediterranean. In the cities there were inns, antique world was much the same sociable as the modern world. All these were great advantages for Christian preaching. Thanks to the finished system of arteries and veins, it was enough for the life-giving word to be dropped anywhere in the Roman Empire. It would quickly spill over into the rest of the body. The best proof and illustration of that, the traveling and preaching of the Apostle Paul.
И те, кто из рода Авраама, и жители Иерусалима, и начальники их не признали их.
When he passed through the land, the Apostle Paul did not only preach the gospel, he also prepared the way for the gospel to the apostles. So the Israelis scattered upon the face of the earth could not only earn money in different places and be saved from the Roman oppressors, but could preach, perform miracles in the great name of the Lord Jesus Christ, and build churches and talk about what they are called by Jesus Christ. Go and preach the gospel to the ends of the earth.
Строить церкви и говорить о том, к чему их предназначил Спаситель наш Господь Иисус Христос.
Paul was born in the town of Tarsus. That was in Asia Minor, modern Turkey. This made him different from the other apostles. The homeland of Andrew, Peter, and Philip was Galilee. Having grown up in that environment, it was not easy for them to accept people from other nationalities. The ultimate dream was to preach in Jerusalem. Pagans were impure men in their eyes. Paul, who grew up among the Greek culture, enriched by the knowledge stored in books, saw his mission in accomplishing all ancient prophecies. The gospel of the Savior would reach all the nations. And the Greek language, common throughout the empire, helped him. Paul preached and wrote his epistles in that language. To those he addressed, he explained many difficult parts of the Old Testament, the scattered texts of the Jews. Even in his youth, he was very familiar to translation of the Old Testament into Greek. The history of this translation takes us back to the Library of Alexandria. Ruler Ptolemy II, Philadelphus of Alexandria, sent a request to the Rabbi of Jerusalem to send him books of Jewish laws, as well as several translators who knew Hebrew and Greek. According to the number of translators, there were 72. The translation was called Septuagint, or Text 70. Septuagint was established in the Library of Alexandria. The New Testament was translated into the Greek language. Greek, the common language of the empire, gave the basis for its distribution. Greek culture also gave us the opportunity to join the great heritage of the Holy Scriptures. Kirill and Methodius translated the Bible into the Slavic language from Septuagint. Cleopatra lived at a crucial time, the crossroads of epochs, when the Messiah was supposed to come on the stage of history. All of her life, she unwittingly contributed to the preparing of the Greek and Roman world to the reception of the Holy Gospel. Then the Christian faith reached various countries and peoples, thus laying the foundation of modern civilization. As a result, Cleopatra had an impact on our life today.